Hello and welcome to the show with me, Jillian Gottsel. Now today I have a really interesting guest called Jonathan DeCarteret, and I've been practicing how to say his name correctly because it's kind of French and there's T's in it, and do you pronounce them or not? But if you go to his LinkedIn, Jonathan DeFi DeCarteret, it's a little thing to tell you how to pronounce his name. So Jonathan, we know each other of old. We're just discussing. We're almost OGs at this stage, but you have a very interesting background. Your project now is Bumper. It's a very exciting project, but I want to talk a bit about your background first of all. You've been involved with different innovative projects, Index, Artful Consulting, Launchpads, marketing, and including working for Smile Train, a charity back in the day. So how would you describe yourself, Jonathan, perhaps?
Well, first of all, hello. Lovely to see you again. I kind of found myself starting businesses at a quite young age. So I was 12, however high you are when you're 12, kind of drawn to starting ventures. And my whole professional career as an adult, I've just been starting and then exiting, a number of kind of SMEs. And I'm particularly drawn to kind of areas where it's kind of new and innovative, just often because it's easier, because there's no competition and you can kind of carve your own pathway. And so that kind of transcended a whole raft of different businesses, really, from one of the first property crowdfunding platforms called Launchpad, to an advertising aggregate buyer called Switch, which I founded and then grew to the UK's 60th fastest growing company. As you say, I then was approached by a buddy of mine who was running a really major US charity called Smile Train, and he asked me to launch that into the UK, which was a real interesting challenge. Totally kind of put me out of my kind of comfort zone, and we built that into a top 20 biggest UK charity within 18 months. And then I suppose my kind of career just started to kind of become attracted more towards tech and fintech. And then, like many of us, I fell down that kind of cryptocurrency rabbit hole and just keep falling through it as we speak.
So, I mean, I think what's true to say that your innovation is key to your projects that you've looked at, and no more so than in your new project, Bumper, which you're the CEO, the CEO of Bumper. And Bumper, I love it on the website. It's God mode for crypto. What a tagline, God mode for crypto. And it's an innovative DeFi protocol, and you are addressing that issue of the pump and dump. So tell me, how does it work?
Well, let me kind of give you a little bit of context then, right? So about 18 months ago, me and my business partner started to kind of see the emergence of DeFi. Right? And for us, that was the whole purpose of we got into crypto, right? Where money is programmable, it is frictionless and automated, and would give rise to all kinds of structured products and financial instruments that you just can't even conceive of in the traditional financial marketplace, right? The plumbing is just fundamentally electric, right? And when DeFi started to kind of emerge, we kind of thought, right, this is really interesting. Is there any way this new ecosystem could start to solve for some of the biggest problems in the financial world, right? Mm-hmm. And so we kind of sat down with a piece of paper and just thought, well, let's look at what the biggest problems are and then try to kind of see if DeFi can help solve for those. The biggest problem of any financial market is volatility. And when you look at the solutions for volatility that are out there, they're naff. They're really naff. You've got a stop loss, the good old stop loss, which trades you out if the market plummets, but it's like a circuit breaker, isn't it? If the market then rebounds, you miss out on that.
Yeah, you're
so
gone.
It's a one-way ticket. And there are loads of bots out there that will kind of wick you out on a red candle, so to kind of trigger your stop loss, and then they'll kind of take the subsequent bounce. So that's not a great solution. The other instrument is an options desk, right, which is widely used by the traditional financial market, right? I don't know if you've ever used an options desk, but they were first introduced in 1973. So this is like a 50-year-old technology, which is still rattling on. It's so inefficient. They're so complex. They're really clunky. There are these fixed expiry windows. It's just a really poor approach to solving volatility. So when we started looking at DeFi, and we started to try to address this issue of volatility, we happened upon a really simple, childlike concept, which I'll kind of explain to you. So follow me on this. So let's say you hold a Bitcoin and you saw it race all the way up to its all-time high of $63,000. And at that point, being an experienced trader who's been in crypto for a while, you would have thought, okay, that's pretty toppy. It's probably just going to retrace down again. It might go up again, we'll see, but it probably will come down. So let's say at that point, you use something like Bumper to protect the price of your Bitcoin at say $60,000. So let's say you're right, the price of Bitcoin as it did started to retrace down. As it hit that $60,000 floor, let's say Bumper then swapped you into stablecoin. So if the market continues to go down, well, you're kind of cashed out. And if it goes down, you can profit from that because your Bitcoin is basically worth 60,000. But what Bumper does, which is the clever bit, is it does the converse of that. So if Bitcoin then say goes to 59, 58, and then pops back up above 60, well, then Bumper swaps you back into Bitcoin again. So what that means, right, is that if the price, you're always protected if the price goes down, but if the price goes up, then you're in Bitcoin, so you'll benefit from that subsequent pump. So we thought, right, okay, there's the
that is actually, I'm sorry, that is so clever. Because I was asking you before we started recording this interview, what role of stablecoins? Stablecoins are amazing. They are just amazing.
Yes, yeah, they are.
So
and their role is going to become more prominent, I think.
Huge. So that is so clever. So I'll just reiterate this. I buy Bitcoin, I put it into Bumper. I say I have a, well, no, sorry, I have a floor. Say, it's 60. Well, it's 40 something today. If it goes below that, it's automatically switching to stablecoin. So I'm still in cryptocurrency. I'm not coming out of it. But if it goes up again, it will put me back into Bitcoin. So if it goes up to 80, I can cash out if I want to. That's
exactly. Well, so we thought this is quite neat, isn't it? But then we started to kind of model this using hourly, minute, tick data. And there's a fundamental flaw with that model, right? It's childlike in its elegance, but unfortunately it doesn't work.
Oh no!
It's because every time you trade from say Bitcoin to stablecoin or back from stablecoin to Bitcoin, you incur transaction costs, you incur gas fees, and you incur slippage. So slippage is where you don't quite get the price you wanted. You try to trade out at $60,000, you get 59,990, so you lose $10.
Okay.
And the problem is that if your asset starts to oscillate around its floor and you're being traded in and out hundreds of times a minute, then the slippage costs just wipe you out. So that kind of was like a bit of a
simplistic idea that I got all excited about, but there is a drawback. Okay, tell me, how are you going to solve this? This is amazing.
Well, it turns out we needed a different mindset on it. And that came in the form of a chap called Sam Brooks, who is one of the most enlightened cryptocurrency intellects I've come across. This was the guy who was the key designer of a protocol called Haven, which then very handsomely transformed independently into Synthetics, which is one of the biggest DeFi protocols in the world. And we got Sam into the room having, basically had made no kind of headway with our existing model. And he said a few words which totally changed our lives. And he said, I get it. What you're doing, you think you're trying to solve volatility. That's not what you're trying to do. You need to solve for slippage. And if you can solve for slippage and you can fix the slippage engine, then by virtue, you can now solve for volatility. And what Sam designed with us was a near zero slippage engine. And that is what is at the heart of Bumper. And that's what makes the whole thing work. So
you're going to have to explain that to me. I'm fascinated. What is a near zero slippage engine?
Okay, so it turns out the answer to kind of deal with the slippage problem is you have to kind of think about things in the aggregate. So let me expand on that a little bit. So like we say, if I've got one person who's protecting their Bitcoin, we've got this kind of reactionary, they're getting traded in and out, if they kind of flip around their floor, their protected floor. But what Bumper does is to say, okay, let's not do that. Let's look at things in the aggregate. So we have lots of people who put on one side, say Ethereum, which is the first asset that we're going to protect, and they put it all into one big pool. So that pool might be comprised of thousands, hundreds, millions of different people who are protecting their Ethereum, and they've all come in at different floors, right? They're all protecting it at different price points.
Mm.
So that's in one pool, and then balance with that on the other side are lots of people who are putting in stablecoin. And so there's thousands, hundreds, millions of people who put stablecoin into that pool. Now, what the protocol is doing is it's looking at these two pools, and it's looking at lots of ratios. In fact, it's looking at 6 specific ratios that we've articulated to make sure that they stay within balance. And so if we get to a point where the price of Ethereum starts to drop, then the protocol needs to rebalance that. And so what it needs to do is to kind of supply more Ethereum into the protocol, or it needs to kind of get rid of some of the stable coin that it's holding. But essentially, what we're doing here is we're not being reactionary. We're looking at the aggregate, and we're trading out much more infrequently than we were if you're just looking after one Bitcoin and you're being really kind of high frequency trading. So that makes the whole thing really efficient, because we're just looking now at the aggregate value, and we're making subtle trades just to kind of keep those two pools in balance. And there are lots of really cool ways you can keep it in balance, because DeFi has got this kind of really high liquidity property to it, because it's low latency, high frequency. So for instance, the people who put Ethereum in are paying a daily premium, a daily charge to protect their asset. And that is used to reward people who've deposited USDC. So when the Ethereum, if there's too much Ethereum in the protocol, then that means that there's lots of people protecting their Ethereum. That means there's lots of people are paying a premium. So that means anybody who puts USDC here is going to get a really high yield. So lots of people then pile in automatically because they're seeking that kind of out market yield. That then brings in lots of stablecoin into the protocol and rebalances it. And we have these first and second order mechanisms that essentially keep the protocol in a check and balance. And it goes all the way down to, if the market really drops very suddenly, then the protocol will commit a trade on a DEX and sell a whole bunch of Ethereum for stablecoin in order to correct itself.
Wow. How many lines of code are involved?
Our white paper at the moment is over 120 pages, and that is comprised of a vast amount of algorithms, mathematical equations, and curves that are beyond my pay grade. This is Sam Brooks, the architect, that has designed this, and we've brought on some really incredibly intelligent consultants that have sense checked this, university professors who have used something called agent-based modeling to test it, and Bumper just is supremely efficient and effective at being this new approach to volatility.
Wow. So tell me then, okay, God mode for crypto. Tell me the mechanics. How would somebody engage with the Bumper platform on a...
Yeah, good question, right? So I don't know if you've kind of how many DeFi protocols you kind of played around with, right? But they tend to be really hard work. Like the UX and UI is like terrible. So when we started the scoping and design phase for the actual protocol design, at the same stage, we looked at how that user experience would look like. So it's really easy. It's 6 clicks to get protected. So you go to the Bumperfy dApp, connect your wallet. It then sees all the assets that you've got. You select the one you want to protect, and then you just have sliding bars saying, I want to protect this amount of my ETH, and I want to set the floor at this level, which might be like 90%. It might be 90% of today's price is the price I'm going to protect. That then brings up a confirmation window that shows you what the daily premium will be looking like, what your protected floor is. You hit click to protect, and that's it.
How do you?
And this is where it gets a little bit super clever, because what we do then is let's say you protected 100 ETH. Okay. What we then do is we've taken that ETH and we've put it into the protocol where it's being balanced, right? But because we're not really utilizing it, it's just being kind of, it's in a balancing scale. What we do is we issue you bumpered ETH. So your bumpered ETH is a fungible version of ETH that will never drop below the floor you protected, because the protocol stands by that. It will redeem you at that price. But your bumpered ETH will follow the price of ETH up if it goes above that floor. Now you can use your bumpered ETH, you can trade with that. You can open up a collateralized debt position knowing I'm never going to get liquidated because my ETH is like God made for crypto ETH. It's never going to go below my floor. And so you can still use that asset and trade with it and benefit from it and get multiples from it while the protocol is balancing your original ETH. And then once you want to redeem, you just send your bumpered ETH back to the protocol and it will send your ETH. If you're below your floor, it will send you your original ETH plus a USDC top up to bring you up to the protected floor price.
That's amazing. That is, I can see why you got so many lines of code, because obviously it's clever and it's the volatility. So when you're using the platform, I was on your website last night, so that you can redeem above the price floor, and then you get your money out. And do you get the X? How does that work? So I put in an ETH and it was $2,000, whatever, and now it's $3,000. I'm going to take it out. So how do I just get ETH back again? Is it minus my fee?
You would just get ETH. Exactly. Yeah. Wow. You just get your original ETH back minus the fee. And the fees can be really low. I mean, we're predicting it could be low as 3% per annum. So let's put that into context. If you're protecting $1 million worth of Bitcoin, it could cost you as little as $30,000 a year to protect that. Now that is vastly cheaper than anything an options desk can do.
Wow. And then it's also, I read into, you have a 2-week minimum contract, and then it's a rolling. So you're not even like when you're protecting your ETH, if you want to run out and buy a house or whatever, you need your money.
Yeah.
It's not tied up, and there's no fees for taking it out early or anything. It recognizes that exactly. It's a mobile asset.
Yeah, and we've done that for a purpose. Like, we want to keep this fluid and we want to keep it accessible, because when you look at the utility cases for Bumper, right? I mean, it starts off with people like you and I who kind of just want to protect our portfolio, right? And that's where we want to be. We want to just be able to kind of look at your wallet and you can just hit a Bumper button and just protect your whole portfolio, right? That's the end game. But where the real, kind of exponential numbers come in is where we can allow other DeFi protocols to just plug in to Bumper. So that's where you might have a Yearn vault of, say, I don't know, a Y-curve ETH pool, and that's protected at a particular floor, and that then kind of allows that protocol to kind of have that kind of anti-volatility protection against it. Or you could have lending sites, like I mentioned, that allow you to open up collateralized debt positions that can't be liquidated because they're protected. And so that not having that kind of fixed window where you have to commit to the protocol, apart from the first kind of part, is really key, because it means other protocols can then just kind of plug into it and pull themselves out if they need to. So it's got a huge amount of kind of utility cases. So
composability is a big feature of Bumper.
Yeah.
Wow. This is like hurting my head almost. It's so good. So there's 3 ways to earn money. Do you want to talk me through those 3 ways to actually earn money? So you're protecting, you're paying a fee, but you can also earn money. How does that work?
Yeah, well, there's a few different actors in the protocol, right? So the first one are people who just want to protect their asset. So what we call them protection takers. So they're going to deposit their asset and they're going to pay a protection fee, premium. Then the other side of it are people who are going to deposit stable coin into the protocol, and in return for that, again, so this is the other half of the protocol, I suppose, is, again, we're quite clever with that. So we allow those people to deposit USDC. What we then do is, because we're not using all that USDC all the time, we only need to use some of it when we're redeeming people who are below their floor. What we do is we then send that money out to other DeFi protocols in order to kind of generate a really good yield. So that might be, we might be to generate somewhere between the kind of 7.5 to 12.5% APY on that. And we then take the majority of that yield that we're getting from other protocols, and then we add onto that the premium that protection takers are paying, and add that on top. and then we pay that yield, or those two different yields, to protection makers of stablecoin. So they should be getting a better yield through Bumper than they can get anywhere else. And then so there's the two ways that makers are earning yield there. And then on top of that, we use our native token, which is the Bump token. And we have a regular daily distribution of the Bump token to incentivize both takers and makers. So if you're a maker, you'll get a distribution of that as well.
I like this. This is very clever. It is very clever. So the rest of the team, they've all got DeFi names. You've all got nicknames. You're DeFi. Do you want to single out any other of your team members that are very, very critical to the project?
Yeah, there's a couple of key ones here. My business partner and chief operating officer is Gareth Ward. So me and Gareth, back in 2017, started our first cryptocurrency business, which was called Index. Now, Index, again, we thought was super innovative. Sometimes there's a problem when you're kind of trying to lead the edge. Sometimes you're a little bit too early in the game, and you don't have the legislation or the regulatory kind of environment. And and what we found with Index, again, was kind of through volatility. We were just exhausted by the volatility problem with crypto back in 2017. Right, and we've all been there. We've all been reaching for our phone at 3 o'clock in the morning to check the price of Bitcoin and look at our portfolio crashing. And me and Gareth thought, is there a way to generate a passive income from crypto? And at that point, there was only one asset, something called masternodes, which generated a really good passive income. And so we started a tokenized fund, which produced a passive income. So if you held our token, then you would get an income of a monthly dividend, basically based on what is a tokenized fund. Gosh, had we known the regulatory hurdles and nightmare that we were going to kind of walk into, I think we would have probably rethought that business. But Gareth, my business partner, and I think really deftly navigated that space. And we navigated, the crypto winter that went on for 2 years, right? Where the market absolutely collapsed. It was those days when you thought you'd hit the bottom and then another trapdoor would open and the price would go down again. And I think that taught us a huge amount about resilience, about treasury management, about regulation, about really what just the cutting edge of DeFi can do. And the fact we were able to sustain ourselves and that business through those very difficult times really kind of put us in a great position for Bumper. So he is my work husband or work wife. I don't think we've worked out the relationship there. Sam, our chief technology officer, who is now a co-founder in the business, has been absolutely instrumental and a guiding light in identifying this new instrument for volatility. And then our other co-founder, Jason Sutty, who had just exited a really successful advertising agency, and we asked him to come on board to look after our marketing. And I think together that kind of kernel of a team have been able to really deploy some really serious technology and results.
Do you know what I'm hearing from you as well? I think because this marketplace is maturing, so there's a huge depth of experience, and you've been through the pain of Index, if you like, with all the rules and regulations, and then you've seen the DeFi, and we've, as I say, in the middle of the night, looking at your phone, oh my God, the price is crashing during the crypto winter, and you've taken it all together, and you're addressing a real issue and real problems. It's very exciting. Tell me about the roadmap. What's happening? What sales are you doing, and when are you doing your IDO?
Yeah, well, gosh, it's been a roller coaster. So you can imagine we were in the lab for the best part of the year to kind of work this out. And then, when Sam came on board, and then we had those kind of major breakthroughs. And we came out in March this year with a flash paper, which really, to a high fidelity definition, described how the protocol was going to work. And we shopped around to kind of think, right, well, let's try and raise $500,000 if we can over the next 3 months to try to kind of start to build this thing out to an MVP. Within 3 weeks, we'd raised 11.3 million USD. Wow. And we declined 32. We were absolutely inundated by some of the smartest people in crypto who suddenly realized this is the way to deal with the volatility problem.
Yeah.
So since that, we then immediately went back into the lab to start building out the first half of the protocol. So that's the half, that's the half that allows makers to deposit USDC into the protocol. And we deployed that on July the 14th. And without really any kind of public announcement, we immediately raised, I think it was $8 million in the first 4 hours that just flowed into the protocol. So there's obviously a very kind of strong underground following of this. But I think that's up to 15 million now in liquidity in the protocol. And for those people, they receive the bump token as a reward. And they were also able to buy the bump token at what we call a private sale. So people were able to convert 20% of what they deposited. And nearly every single person that deposited at that point did take the opportunity to buy bump. So that was really amazing support from the community. So where we're heading to now is what we call the next stage, which is the pre-sale. Mm-hmm. So on October the 14th, anybody will be able to just buy the bump token using our DApp and deposit USDC to buy bump token. Mm-hmm. And that'll be at a very special pre-sale price, and it'll be a kind of first come, first served. We'll be moving over towards the end of November for a public sale, and that will be on a public platform, and we'll announce that over the course of the next few months. And then that will be quickly followed by listing on exchanges and decentralized exchanges, and then shortly after that, the protocol will be going live.
Exciting times. I love it. Do you know, it's very funny, at the early part of the interview, I went, oh, that's a great idea. And you went, no, that doesn't work. Oh, I've missed this totally. It's a slippage is the problem. And you're dead. And isn't it funny how you have, oh, that's a great idea. Oh, and I love the fact you've got lines and lines of code, because it's very mathematical, isn't it? It's some really sharp brains that are looking at this. This is wow.
Yeah.
And it is a simple idea, but
it's a simple idea, but the execution is ridiculously complicated.
Yeah.
But like a lot of protocols are, if you kind of get into the maths behind Curve, or even something relatively straightforward like Compound or Aave, then there's a huge amount of maths. I actually think one of the most beautiful kind of high lofted protocols that really is supported on the pillars of mathematics is synthetics, which we talked about, mentioned before. That is just high art to me. It is phenomenal how we've managed to create within cryptocurrency exposure to synthetic assets. And I think what Bumper does is it kind of looks at that and kind of goes, well, that's really cool, but you can now do this. And when you think about what Bumper could do, what we can take is something like traditional stock. So you can take something like Tesla. Yeah. You can tokenize that, bring it into the crypto world, you can bumper that stock. You can do the same with NFTs. You could do the same with a fund. And that's going to be the next thing on our roadmap. Is we know this thing works, right, categorically. So we're going to be launching this. And the important thing to remember about Bumper is by design, once you understand how it works under the hood, right, and by design, the more people who've deposited liquidity into it, and the higher our token price goes, then by design, the protocol becomes more robust and more efficient at what it does. The bigger it grows, literally the better it is at its job. So we're the first people to crack this, and it's a land grab. So that's why we're moving at this really frenetic pace to get it out there quickly, and then we'll have a really secure protocol that really owns that space. But the next stop for us is we're going after traditional finance. So we're going to be creating a regulated version of this that will run in parallel to DeFi, but will have kind of KYC, AML filters on the other side, and allow institutions who are holding crypto on their books to protect that. And then once we've secured that, we want to go after the traditional equities market, which is obviously a multi-trillion-dollar market.
It's a land grab. It absolutely is. Well, I have to say, fascinating. I've learned a lot. My head hurts. As you say, simple ideas can be terribly complex to actually implement. And thank you so much for your time today, Jonathan.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you, Jill.